Have you ever felt annoyed or frustrated when whatever you try to do, you just keep losing? Or when your teammates do mistakes that lead you to lose the game? Or when you splatted an enemy only for them to lag and trade you back seconds after you got them? Or when you made a big mistake that lost you a game that you were confident you'd win? Well, yes. All of these were rhetorical questions. If you've played any competitive video game for more than a few hours, the answer to those questions is yes. I don't think I have ever met a player who has never experienced any of this, at least on a subconscious level. It's a very human reaction. Your brain is conditioned to the feeling of reward when doing something good, so much so that you feel bad when it is not there. This feeling of frustration is often called tilt. Being tilted means being frustrated or angry with the game to a degree that it impacts your ability to have fun or analytically think about the game, where the cause is usually losing or playing badly. Tilt is often something that mostly happens subconsciously, and it takes time to train yourself to notice early signs of tilt. Everyone tilts differently, and that means that to get better at recognizing and combating it, you will have to be introspective about how you really tilt. There are some common patterns that usually play a big part, but ultimately you will have to figure this out on your own. Figuring out how tilt happens is always the first step to working on it in future. To be honest, this is also a pretty good mental exercise about trying to figure out how your brain works, and it's something that can be really useful in other situations in life as well. From my personal experience, and having talked to a lot of others about tilt, I've seen two really common forms of tilt. For most people I've talked to, the major source of tilt has been a combination of the two. Let's take a look at how they work, the damage they do, and how you can work on them. The first one is what I like to call outward focus tilt, or also just solo queue tilt, because it tends to happen way more commonly and to a much higher degree in solo queue. It is characterized by putting a very big focus on the mistakes of your teammates, and discrediting when your teammates or enemies do a good play. Something like, "Bro, just push the Rainmaker, we could have gotten lead." Or, "Luna Blaster is such an easy weapon, they don't even have to aim at me." Splatoon is a team game, and you can only control 1/4 of your team, namely yourself. Because of that, when enemies make mistakes, it is really easy to put the blame on them. Tilt arises from a cognitive dissonance in your brain as it subconsciously tries to deal with the fact that you lost. It is really easy to push the responsibility away from yourself, to subconsciously say, "That loss wasn't my fault," because there is some degree of truth to it. This form of tilt will absolutely destroy any kind of improvement you wanted to achieve going into the playing session. When you tilt like this, you actively push responsibility away from yourself. You make yourself unable to take accountability and to reflect on the mistakes that you made, which is probably the most important step in learning and improving. It stops you from being able to think critically. It means letting your subconscious mind take complete control of you. If you aren't careful about not voicing this tilt in voice chat, it also makes you a less fun person to be around, and damages the feeling of trust and being welcomed in the community space. As with all forms of tilt, working on this so that it happens less isn't easy and will require introspection, and you will largely have to come up with your own solutions. I do want to share one trick that helped me a lot though. The mindset shift I want to encourage ultimately comes down to respect and empathy. The idea is to respect the players you are playing with for who they are and where they are in their journey of improvement. Because ultimately, all of us are on a journey about improvement, and that journey is far more important than whatever results we want to achieve. The players you're playing with will be at different points in that journey because they aren't you. Every human is unique, and that includes simple things like their skill in Splatoon. They have had a different life and a different competitive Splatoon journey so far, and it is important to accept that. Some players will be ahead of you in that journey, and some will be behind you. When you notice yourself complaining about your teammates' mistakes, remind yourself that there was a time where you yourself did the mistakes they are doing right now. Remind yourself that, ultimately, complaining about that isn't fair to them, nor is it constructive for you. Remind yourself that there is an inherent selection bias, and that you only look at their mistakes, not the place where they are doing something really well. In fact, the most important part of this mindset shift is to go from looking at your teammates' mistakes to looking at what players are doing well. When your teammates have done a good play, genuinely congratulate them in your head or even out loud. Press the booyah button. It does really help both you and them stay in a positive mindset. The same applies to your enemies. Instead of trying to discredit their skill by complaining how their weapon is so easy or their playstyle is so boring, accept and congratulate your enemies when they outplay you. That will help you stay analytical and focus on how they are doing well, which you can then use to improve your own skill. Do not accept the excuse for losing that your subconscious brain wants to come up with. Take accountability. Accept that you also did mistakes, that you could have helped your teammates more, and that you could have had a bigger impact on the game. Instead of an outward-focused mindset, where you push responsibility away from yourself, have an inward-focused mindset, where you understand that ultimately you shouldn't care about the mistakes other people in the game make, and only focus on yourself. This mindset shift was really impactful for me, and I hope it can be for you as well. It does, however, lead us into the other big source of tilt, which I like to call inward-focused tilt. It comes down to being really harsh on your own mistakes, feeling like you are, quote, bad at the game, or feeling like you aren't improving. This is what is a bit more likely to happen in competitive games, since you can't really blame the team you are playing with as much as in solo queue. For me and my former teams, this form of tilt has happened a lot when doing bad in tournament runs, or doing bad in scrims where we expected ourselves to do better. It also often happens when you're confident you'd win a game, but then you or your team does a major mistake that makes you lose. I've often observed this form of tilt leading to the kinds of situations where people stop talking and the VC goes quiet. And it has happened to me a lot as well. Like with all forms of tilt, it also stops your part of the brain that is responsible for critical thinking and introspection, and lets your emotions take over. This form of tilt comes in many facets, and each require their own answer and mindset shift. Earlier, I brought up the idea of congratulating your enemies and teammates when they do a good play. This is something that, in a reasonable degree, is also valuable for yourself, in the form of popping off when you do a good play. You shouldn't do so much that you stop analytically thinking about the game or drown out other callouts from your team, but if done to a healthy degree, it is super valuable for yourself to stay in an energized, excited and confident headspace. I want to especially bring this up in a team context. Mentality is really infectious in a voice chat, and callouts for the simple purpose of hyping up your teammate when they did something crazy are maybe the most important callouts. A lot of times, people think that callouts that don't communicate any information are worthless and clog up space for other calls. But especially callouts like this serve an emotional purpose that keep everyone in a confident flow state. In addition to recognizing your good plays, the other important lesson is that making mistakes is okay. Everyone makes mistakes. It's actually a really important part of the learning process. In fact, noticing your own mistakes is really good, since it means you know what you can improve upon. If you, for example, feel really bad about forgetting to watch the Rainmaker and someone sneaks past your team and KOs, it is very likely that you will remember to watch it in future. In the end, who cares that you lost that match? Especially if you're in a scrim, that environment is literally there for you to experiment and make mistakes to learn from. Even in tournaments, the fact that you have things to learn from is way more important than whatever result you could have gotten. Something that also comes up often in that context is the feeling that you aren't improving, even though you're playing a lot. For that, I want to bring up an image that, as far as I can tell, originates in 2014 from painter Mark Delachio. It's about improving at painting in art, but it applies to pretty much any skill. It highlights how your ability to see, so in Splatoon your awareness or your ability to recognize mistakes, improves before your actual skill improves. During the time that you improve, your perception of your own skill actually increases beyond where your actual skill is. That perception then starts to decrease as soon as you hit a skill barrier or a time where you don't know what to improve upon anymore, and it will at some point actually go below your actual skill. Especially when your ability to recognize mistakes increases, you see even more of your own mistakes. Those are the times where most players tend to feel the most frustrated, the most burnt out, and the least motivated to improve, where inward focus tilt tends to be the worst. I have also felt those periods where you feel like you just aren't improving at all, but from my experience looking back, I've always improved during them. I just wasn't able to see it back then. I want to mention one more mindset shift that can help with this issue of tilt, which is to have an improvement-oriented mindset instead of a result-oriented one. That means focusing on what and how you can improve, instead on just being focused on winning. Instead of seeing games as wins or losses, view every match as information you can use to better understand the game and what you should be doing. This has two effects. One, that your practice is actually more efficient, since clearly thinking about small achievable goals about improvement and only focusing on those in a practice session makes you improve a lot faster. And two, that you now have goals about the game that aren't winning, but that can still create a positive feedback loop. If you have clearly set and worked on a goal throughout a practice session, you can and should be proud of that. For example, that you improved your substrafing, even though you lost the majority of the matches. One thing that is really good for this is to set up a sheet where you track your goals and improvement, because that makes it a very clear and conscious process. As an example, a team I coach used this sheet in the past, where they kept track of goals, possible solutions, progress, notes, and resources. I have linked a template for this sheet in the description. To use it, just make a copy in your personal Google Drive, or copy-paste the contents into a spreadsheet program of your choice. Prevention is by far the most important part in stopping tilt. It is much easier to stay in a positive headspace than to move from a negative to a positive one. Tilt is a vicious cycle, where tilting leads to overall playing worse and making more mistakes, which again leads to more tilt. At the same time, a good mindset can be a positive feedback loop as well. If you approach the game confidently and with an improvement-oriented analytical mindset, that will show in your gameplay and the speed of your improvement. As such, the easiest way to work on your mindset is to always start out in a positive headspace and reinforce that during each session. If you notice yourself tilting, the best practice is to immediately take a break from playing. You can experiment with how long you need to calm down and return to an analytical mindset. Some people just stop for the whole day, others only need 2 or 3 minutes to get a glass of water. I encourage you to additionally experiment with other techniques or routines of dealing with tilt. Again, tilt is highly individual and requires introspection and individual solutions. Some people I talk to can just mentally reset by closing their eyes and blocking out every input for a few seconds. Setting up routines like this, that you can consistently do to reset your mental every time you tilt, is really effective. It's a way of conditioning your subconscious mind to block out those negative emotions and stay concentrated on what's important. Your subconscious is stronger than you think. Your emotions impact you more than you think, and the well-being of your body impacts you more than you think as well. I and everyone that I've talked to about this play worse when I haven't eaten enough for the day, or when there's a task that I'm procrastinating, or when there's something else that has been subconsciously in the back of my mind. Some of these things I'm not able to influence, but if I can give any advice, it is that taking good care of your body and of your mind is way more important for your skill in Splatoon than you might think. This has been implicitly said throughout the video, but I want to explicitly reiterate just how important a good mindset is. I've seen a lot of people regularly get mad about the game when they are playing it, and that kind of negative relation with the game comes almost exclusively from not being open with yourself about your goals and your mindset. Splatoon is a game, and even if you play it competitively to improve, the most important thing is still that you have fun. You and everyone who is somewhat regularly in voice chat with you will have more fun with the game if you are introspective about your mindset. If you are confident in your abilities, that flat out makes you play better. Your mindset is also the most important factor in how fast you improve at the game. If you tilt, your brain blocks out your ability to think critically. It takes away your ability to learn from mistakes and consciously improve at the game. If you have a strong, improvement-based and analytical mindset, you can take away data for improvement in every match that you play. My journey of improving my mindset has genuinely also helped me a lot in real life. For example, through having a better mindset with my work in school and university. I won't go into much depth here, but a really common mindset people have with school is to only focus on the grades, when I think focusing on learning about the topics is way more important. There's a lot more depth to mindset, tilting, and getting out of bad mindsets, especially in team environments, but those move into a way more personalized direction. I've created a separate unscripted video where I talk about my personal experiences with tilt, especially in the context of my previous competitive teams. So feel free to check that out if you're interested. Thanks a lot for watching. These videos take a lot of work to make, so if you found this helpful, I'd appreciate if you could like, subscribe, and/or share the video with others. All three really help the video get more traction.